Hello, my friends. Welcome to Gardening with Creekside. You're in for a treat today, my friends. We are back at Mimi's garden, and not only are we at Mimi's garden with Rosie, but we are actually going to get Mimi on camera today. Yes, we are. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little quick tour of Mimi's garden to see how it is performing here in the middle of August in North Carolina, a Zone 8A. And then we are going to head over to her butterfly garden. She is an official Monarch way station garden, and so we are going to walk through that and talk with Mimi, and she is just going to tell us about her butterfly garden, because today, this morning on Saturday, August the 15th, here at the Garden Center, we are offering our free workshop, and the workshop this month is the tour of Mimi's butterfly garden with Mimi and Cece. While we're not going to film that tour, you get an exclusive one-on-one with Mimi for that garden. It is going to be a great, fun time. Mimi has been on video many times before, and you've heard her little snippets in there. I finally wore her down, and she is going to be with us all mic'd up. So for those of you that are not aware of Mimi, my mama. So my parents live in this house and have lived here for close to 49 years. They have dry shade. They live underneath this beautiful forest of predominantly pine trees. Of course, there are some maples and poplars and all sorts of things in here, but Mama gardens underneath this canopy of trees. She does not have one piece of irrigation in her garden, and she has got a beautiful dry shade garden. She manages this all by herself. Basically, it is her full-time job. It is her love. It is her passion. And so we are going to have some fun walking through and just kind of looking at this garden. Now, when I proposed this video to Mama, and I was like, Mama, can I come up here and film your garden? And she was so funny. She's like, why in the world do you want to do that? It's the middle of August. It looks awful. I'm like, Mama, it does not look awful. But I wanted to come up and show you this garden at this time of year, because when our family always gets together for July 4th, and we come up to Mama and Daddy's and have July 4th with my sister and her family and our kids and all together. And in July 4th, we were in the middle of the heat dome, right? So we had actual temperatures of like 100 and feel like temperatures 105, 106, and we were in the middle of like an extreme drought. And we pulled up, and I was like, dear heavens, Mama's garden was just massively suffering. She could not keep up with the water in those kinds of temperatures. And one thing that struck me was when we were walking up to the house, she has this little collection of ferns right here. These have all, like, I think self-sowed themselves. She has not planted them. So you've got Japanese painted. You've got like an evergreen fern right here. Y'all, these things were laying flat on the ground. I am talking like dried up, shriveled looking, awful. All of the ferns here along the side of the house, they were just struggling as well. We have a sweet little male hummingbird, if you can see him on the feeder. And it was really sad. Her Tough Stuff hydrangeas that she has alongside of the driveway, which are just magnificent specimens of this hydrangea. It was really bad, but the Lord has blessed us as we sit here and watch this hummingbird. The Lord has blessed us with some really beautiful, fantastic rain in probably the last 3 weeks, maybe the last month. We have come out of the drought, and the garden has rebounded beautifully. So I want to kind of walk through and just give you some highlights of this, and then we're going to meet Mimi over there at the butterfly garden. Mama is the queen of understanding her garden and being a student of her own garden and knowing what works and what does not work although she has tried so many things that maybe don't work because she is dry shade. So she longs to have more sun, but really she is shade, filtered sun, that kind of garden. And so she is, like I said, the queen of leaning in and understanding what works in her garden. So you're going to see a lot of plants that are repeated throughout. They may be different cultivars, but they're going to be that same species of plants. For example, Lenten roses. Lenten roses do great in her garden. You can see where all of these have naturalized. So these are all Lenten roses that have naturalized. Epimedium does really, really well. Nice, great evergreen shade perennial. Solomon seal. She's got the beautiful variegated Solomon seal that just kind of meanders and wanders through her garden. Really, she has no grass. So growing up, we did have grass, but as the trees have matured, the grass has gone away. And so she just embraced that, said, forget trying to grow grass. We're just going to make it all natural and have the gardens. But you can see like hellebores all the way through. Y'all, hellebores, Lenten roses, right? We love them because in late winter they bloom. So can you just imagine the carpet of color like this around this island, right? So she's got Lenten roses all through here. Mimi is also the queen of unique yard art. Lots of stumpery here. So these are some logs that she brought from the family land down in South Carolina. And you're going to notice that she has got a lot of wind sculptures. All of her wind sculptures are Lyman Whitaker pieces. He is an artist in, I think, like Arizona. He's out west. But the Grovewood Gallery in Asheville, North Carolina, they're at the Grove Park Inn near Biltmore, all of that. They are one of the art galleries that sell the Lyman Whitaker pieces. And so over the past 20-something years, she has collected these different wind sculptures. Now it is deader than a doornail right now, so they are not moving, but just with typically the slightest little breeze and they will begin spinning, and they are quite lovely. Mimi also, as far as what works in her garden, Brunnera. So you're going to see lots of Brunnera. She is a massive fan of Feather Falls Carex, just like I am. So we've got beautiful Feather Falls throughout here. The tractor seat plants, of course, love those. And then she has azaleas. These are the old-timey azaleas. Fun story, her mama, my grandmama Betty, brought her, like, I think she said it was like a trunk full of 1-gallon azaleas. Grandmama had found a deal when they first moved into the house and got a great deal on these 1-gallon azaleas, and then they planted them. So these azaleas are, yeah, they're about as old as I am, so about 48 years old. And so she has maintained them beautifully. We'll cut them, trim them back every year, but you know, of course, iconic Southerners, as we do in the springtime around Easter, we will come and have our pictures made with it. Some of my favorite pictures of our kids are in front of these azaleas. Great, great hydrangea, y'all. This is Haas Halo. Haas Halo won an award, at least a award, probably more than one award at the Mount Cuba plant trials for its massive pollinator attraction. So this beautiful, very lace cap type bloom on it. Obviously it's finished blooming, but when it is in bloom, you have all these little tiny flowers up here at the top that the pollinators go crazy over. During the drought and the heat dome, Mama said these 3 Haas Halos right here were the one thing she did not have to water. They have been in the ground probably maybe like 4 or 5 years now. They came kind of small. Clearly their feet have gotten happy and established and handled the drought like a champion. But just mixing in lots of color and texture with ferns, where there's Japanese painted ferns, and of course tons of the autumn brilliance ferns in here. This is a ribbon falls, Carex, and then you know what, y'all? A mess, right, offers an opportunity. So she obviously had a ceramic pot that broke for some reason. So why not just use that as part of the little yard art? So she turns it halfway down. She's got some ajuga right here spilling out of it. And then she has the other piece of that same pot with another feather falls right there as well. So yeah, I mean, oh, yeah, okay. Remember the other video the other week, and we got was a plant delivery, and I was talking about the arborvitae ferns. It was not really an arborvitae, but they call it arborvitae because it has that kind of look and that texture to it, and then it turns bronze. There you go. Look at the most gorgeous display of arborvitae ferns I've ever seen, coming around the base of this pine tree. Y'all, that pine tree is every bit of 2.5, 3 feet across. And these arborvitae ferns are completely just surrounding it. And she has chopped at these and given, you know, clumps of this away to our staff and to friends, and just absolutely beautiful. Great evergreen, beautiful ground cover, living at the base of a pine tree with no irrigation. This is why we absolutely adore this plant. So if you ever see an arborvitae fern, whether it's at Creekside or somewhere else, then you definitely want to go ahead and grab those if you have that dry shade. And then I love this little island bed right here. Lots of just kind of color and texture and different, you know, she's got some annuals with the double impatience right here, but very few annuals in Mimi's garden. Most of these are going to be perennials and shrubs. And then she has, y'all, this is an abelia that she has had for years and years, and it is in full bloom. Let's see if I can tiptoe through here, because it is a cloudy, damp morning, but yep, there we go. So we've got swallowtails up at the top. Not sure if we can see those or not, but we've got yellow swallowtails up there feasting on this abelia. We've got some bumblebees, but this is a massive abelia covered in these beautiful white blooms. Just a beautiful specimen of a shrub. This is probably at least 6 feet tall, and I would say about 8 feet wide. I mean, it is huge. Of course, we love abelias because they do bloom on new growth. So even if Mimi has to whack on this, it still continues to push out those beautiful blooms here in the late summer. Ruby Slippers Oakleaf Hydrangea. This thing is ginormous. It is such a beautiful oakleaf hydrangea. Are the blooms brown? Why, yes, they are. It is okay. It is the middle of August in North Carolina. Went through the drought, went through the heat dome, but look at the foliage, doing great. And then of course, Ruby Slippers is going to give us a beautiful, bright red burgundy foliage in the fall. It will be just a stunning display of color. And then the one little strip of sun that she has is going to be here on the edge of what we call the walnut field, because she's got walnut trees right here. And of course, the nursery and our property is just on the other side of that. But yeah, she also has another one of the abelias right over here, and I wish we had smell-o-vision because it smells so sweet. It has the most lovely little fragrance to it. There we go, right on cue, that beautiful swallowtail. There's 2 of them that are just having the most fun feasting on this abelia. Yep. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab Mimi, and then we're going to head on down to the butterfly garden, and she's going to talk us through that. Let's just walk so you can see everything. All right, my friends, so as we're gonna walk down to the butterfly garden, but I want Mama to talk about her cast iron plants, because this is where you have most of your plants, right?
Yes.
Your cast iron plants?
Absolutely.
So where do you, okay, basically are all these different varieties?
Yes, absolutely. And my thought process is that, yes, I want to line the left, but I'm also thinking that I'm sheltering them with the trees. Because we get some pretty fierce winds through here. And that's not to say that it doesn't damage them, but still, again, I feel like they have the protection of the trees. And just recently, or really just the last few weeks, I've started adding, I realize this area can support more.
Yeah.
So I've added some ferns, a little fern there. And this is kind of my hospital bed over there. And they were doing so well that once Poppy put the rock there, I just added a few little things.
I love that. And then those are, because those are the hellebores, because those are just, do you know, like, okay, so for example, these are two different kinds of hellebores. Y'all, I promise we're going to the butterfly garden. But okay, so these are two different kinds of hellebores. Do you know what the difference is between them, other than like they look different? But
and there is a botanical name, and know that I can't tell you off. And
yeah,
and it was always told me that these are the stinky hellebores. They actually smell like coffee.
oh,
They actually and they're quite sought after too. I don't think that they have had the breeding that these guys have, because I mean, you know what these guys have done.
Exactly. But I mean, my gosh. And so these, I mean, they like these just naturalize like crazy.
Well, what I've done is that I have thrown the seed heads.
Oh.
And this is what has happened, is the seed heads have
So when do you cut the seed? Like after they bloom?
After they bloom, probably early spring.
And then do you pop them open, or you just throw the whole thing down?
I just throw the whole thing down, and this is what has happened, particularly back over there. But I've got different areas where, because we cannot burn all this debris. We just cannot burn it. And plus it's waxy, so it doesn't burn well.
Right.
So there are just certain areas that I just drop. Particularly over here, because all of this has seeds. Particularly over here, I've got a bunch. You can see all those Lenten roses, and that's just where I've dropped all the foliage, the seed heads.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, oh, so another thing I was going to talk about as we walk down here with the Aspidistra is, because you and I have talked about this. So you have all the pine trees. So even in the winter, you've got your hardwoods too, but in the winter time, you tend to have more shade than I do. And I found that my Aspidistra, whether it was the cold or it was the winter sun, like a lot of mine up at the chicken coop burned completely down to the ground, where yours will stay nice and evergreen, right?
But I did have a lot. Of dead this year, and I really think that some of that is actually winter wind. I don't think the winter sun, but
does it as much.
I think it's the winter wind, because we just had such a crazy.
It was nuts. And then, because I think if I lost anyone, it was maybe one of them, but everything else is coming back.
It's just slow. And see, and those new leaves last for 3 years. So they are constantly, you know, you're losing some, you're gaining some, you're losing some. So it's not like they all die at the same time. It's staggered over a 3-year period.
All right. So, okay. So as we make our way across the walnut field to the butterfly garden, okay, I know the history, obviously, of this garden, but but for the peoples that don't know, explain how this garden came to be.
Oh, well, Jerry cleaned out. In other words, there's a ditch that runs this whole length, and a ton of water comes. And so he has put in a much larger pipe to deal with all this water.
Mm-hmm.
And this was 2 years ago. I think it was like in January of 24 or December of 23.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I know that is because the photos have the date on them.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, when we trim, and so when he put in the ditch, and of course it looked ugly. So when we trimmed our longleafs, I just laid down the boughs to keep it from washing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all this water comes down, and all these zinnia seeds came, and they just sprung up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't that many, but it was enough that your staff noticed.
Uh-huh.
And that's all it took is, Mimi, those look so good. Could I cut a few? And I said, oh, yes, 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 yes. So that was it. And then Jackson was my my accomplice. He
we tend to do that
because where this sawdust is were piles of wood chips. And I knew that the best way to perhaps make a sunny garden, not that I thought about a pollinator garden, but to make a sunny garden, and this is such bad clay, we put wood chips.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackson would say, don't you want to add a few more? Don't you think we need to make this a little bigger? And so this is it. I mean, this is what Jackson, we just kept adding until, you know, we've gotten to this size.
And then you keep adding, because you added one around the electricity pole, and then you added the little island bed right here. So yes. You started with the zinnias, and then it wasn't that long afterwards where you started to try to bring in the pollinators and the monarchs.
Yes, I went to a symposium in York, and the joyful butterfly folks were there. Mm-hmm. That was my downfall. Oh, mercy, was that my downfall. So, yes. And so then I started reading. Uh-huh. And once you get the first, whether it's a monarch or a swallowtail or whatever it is, once you get the first one, you are hooked. Mm. And I now realize that it's more than about the monarchs now. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, we've seen one sighting so far this year. This time last year, we had 20 swallowtail caterpillars on my fennel. Mm-hmm. And we already had some monarch caterpillars, and we've got nothing this year. But they're flitting around. And you know, maybe they're just later. I don't know. But it's like I said, it's more than now. It was a mission, monarch. It was a mission. But now, the little dragonflies, they're things that, you know, I just wasn't aware of. And it just teems with activity.
Because now you started out, you know, going for the monarchs, but when you plant for the monarchs, everything else comes with it. And so, I mean, you've got salvias and Joe Pileweed, and of course the zinnia. So you've got this beautiful collection of annuals and perennials in here together. I mean, and this is just filled in so incredibly beautiful. So the flowers, let's just start at the basics. The flowers are for the actual adult butterflies
That is
to
right.
attract them in.
That is exactly right.
And so we want to have a host and a variety of flowers to bring in not only the butterflies, but also the other honeybees, bumblebees, predatory wasps, I mean, beneficial insects, all the things all together.
That's right.
And so then once you have the food source for the parents and they realize, oh, there's a food source for my babies, this is a great place to come through and lay the eggs. So like this, milkweed.
All right. And I had to be strategic on this as well. At first, when I started planting, I had not seen, I hadn't read this information because I've planted some milkweed in the middle of the bed. And milkweed should be planted at an edge, and it should all be grouped together. You want your butterflies to be able to find it easily. And this is not irrigated. And I knew that I needed more than one kind of milkweed. So this is the swamp milkweed, and it's on a slope. So this is the wettest.
Okay.
And this is the milkweed where I saw Miss Monarch last Wednesday. She was in this one. But Cece and I cannot find an egg or a caterpillar. And maybe she just was a scout. Going to go back and tell the friends to come in.
Right.
And then there's the controversy of tropical milkweed.
Yes.
And if your milkweed does not go in to the winter, in other words, if it dies, that's not an issue. And so this is tropical milkweed. This is tropical milkweed.
Because they do prefer certain milkweed over other.
They do.
They do love the tropical milkweed. So is this hairy balls?
This is not. This is just some.
It's just called tropical.
It's just a tropical, and I got it at Southern States. I got a whole flat. It was like $3 a little container, which is unreal.
Yeah.
So
so you've got 3 of the tropical planted together. You've got 3 of the swamp together, and they're right beside each other.
Then we come on down, and this was recommended, and this is Sonoida, and I got this from Plant Delights. And Patrick McMillan suggested this. I've had a hard time getting it to survive, so I'm thrilled to have this one. Here we've got tropical again here. I think this is called Hello Yellow.
Yep.
This is Hello Yellow. Tropical again. And then all sprinkled in, see the little thread light?
Oh, yeah.
That's called World. W-H-O-R-L-E-D.
It looks like an Amsonia.
It does. So this is the most milkweed I have ever had.
And then don't you have some common?
And then I was going to say, and so we do have common. I made the mistake of bringing it from rubies over, and it goes crazy.
Oh.
It goes crazy. So I did not want to put it in here. So I put it across.
And so it has those big fat leaves.
It has the big fat leaves, but this doesn't get the sun.
Oh.
So therefore, but it will still be food, but at the barn, it is like 5 and 6 feet tall.
Oh, wow. I mean, these are huge leaves.
Yes. So here again, this is food. And there is, and once you get those monarchs and you're running out of food, you can move them. You can move them. If you've got other sources of milkweed somewhere else on the property, you can move them. And I did move them last year. I mean, I did. And this big guy in the middle here, a master gardener friend, Jen, gave that to me, and she's even in the container, everything. She gave it to me, and she said the monarchs absolutely love it. So, but it is a tropical, and she, in the past, cut hers down and put it in her garage, and I'm thinking that is what I'm going to do. But she said it propagates beautifully. So,
I mean, that is a mature plant.
that is a very mature plant. So I'm eager to see, you know,
I would think that would support a lot of caterpillars.
that would support a lot of caterpillars. It really would. And then, of course, we've always heard about the butterfly weed. We
Right.
always, but
They don't eat it.
This is not their number one source.
No, they do not eat it.
They, if they're desperate, they will, but this is not their number one source. And for the first time this year, some of these seed pods, I actually have little babies throughout.
Oh, really?
Yeah, throughout that I did not.
Because when they pop open, they do these really light and airy. I mean, it makes sense because the wind can catch them, but it looks almost like spider webs, how they'll open up and pop open. And mine at the house is doing it, and they just, yeah.
And see, the wind takes it, and away they go. And of course, you can, if you want to start from seed.
There's Hummer.
If you want to start some from seeds, you can.
Uh-huh.
I've tried it, and I'm just not a good seed person. I'm just not a good seed person. That's just all it is to it.
I love it. So those are for the monarchs, and then like for the swallowtails, like you've got. So the swallowtails like plants that are in like the carrot family. So you've got fennel, obviously carrots, parsley,
rue.
You've got rue over here.
Golden Alexander. And it really is like a salad bowl, if you think about it. For the swallowtails. There it's like it really is, because it's your herbs. And you know, last year we could not keep enough parsley to feed these little rascals.
They were eating us out of house and home.
And the voles, here again, I'm dealing with voles here. The vole, I had an seedling from my other fennel down there, and I planted it up here, and of course they ate it. So I've just purchased this one, and you can see I've got permatil all around it. I did not put that one in the vole cage, and I'm hoping that will deter them.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing. I mean, almost everything supports your wildlife. Almost everything. I've been very careful not to use any sprays. Whatever is here, it is here.
It is here.
And if it's weeds, then I try to and see after the rain, see it just comes right out.
That's right.
And so my goal here is a ground cover. It's called Turkey Tangle Frog Fruit.
That's a mouthful.
And it is a host plant for skippers. And so, though
these are not weeds. These are a host plant.
They are a host plant.
Look at that.
And so, plus the goal is, because if we have heavy rains, you know, this ditch can overflow.
Yes.
And so this is holding, and I moved it over here because we get a lot of water coming down here. And so, you know, because you've mowed this for me.
Yeah.
The goal is to get rid of this grass and let it come on over.
Yeah.
Now that's an ambitious project, but that is the goal.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing to think that this garden is roughly 2 years.
It is.
I mean, essentially 2 years old, and just putting in a huge, you know, time and effort and sweat in here. So you mentioned, okay, so if people are interested in getting different kinds of plants to support their butterfly garden, you said, of course, Plant Delights is a good resource. And then the Joyful Butterfly both of those are, of course, online.
Right. And the Joyful Butterfly, this is probably the best. They have the best website of anything I've read. They, you can look up all the different butterflies. You can look up all the different butterflies. You can look up the host plants. You can look up the nectar plants. Then they have a blog with different articles. You know, it's just amazing. because in the other you have to search. You
Okay.
search. Whereas all I do with Joyful Butterfly is just click on the tabs and away I go.
Is that your favorite resource?
It is. It without a doubt. And most of the money in here is Joyful Butterfly.
Is there any other source that you can think of, like for an online source, or is that your predominant one?
That would be my predominant one. And another thing is, it's in South Carolina. You've got to be very careful where you buy, because you need to be in your area, your zone,
region.
your region.
Yep.
And so, yes, for me, but there are.
So probably if we've got folks who are, like, if you're watching from like the Midwest or California,
Yes,
then I would say the best resource I would say would be like go to your extension office maybe, or your master gardener group, you know, locate them and ask them what their preferred source of, and then also y'all just do a good old Google search.
I was going to say, now for me, it was the Google search. Prairie Moon Nursery.
Yep.
They're High Country Gardens. I've gotten things from them. Yes. And sometimes you just, if there's a certain plant you want, you just Google and see where you can get it.
Right.
But the joy is just
well, like you said, you mentioned earlier, like the staff, because you're always in here working, and so it never fails. You know, we have a quote slight little traffic jam right here, because it gets a little skinny right here, and if somebody doesn't park just strategically, then we get a traffic jam because everybody wants to stop, especially when the caterpillars come.
Yes.
Now when the caterpillars are here and the chrysalis, everybody stops and wants to come and see and talk to Mimi and get an update on all the butterflies' progress. But Mama, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate it. And so this is that little personal tour if you were not able to make it to the butterfly workshop today that's happening. Yeah, so we finally got her on camera. After 6 years, we got her mic'd up and on camera. So my friends, just enjoy it. Just have fun. Don't stress out too much.
No stress.
No stress. Just have fun. Add flowers. And I saw that Mimi had some asters in here. We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of having those flowers, whether it's an annual or perennial, in the late summer into fall. Even if you don't get caterpillars and you don't have milkweed, give them some flowers to feed those mamas as they are making their way around.
That's
right?
That's right.
All right. As always, thanks so much. If you haven't subscribed, we'd love for you to do that. Y'all have an amazing day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.